In this time of pandemic, every employer wants to ensure safety and welfare of their employees. In all government offices, especially the Department of Education, safety must be ensured across governance level. What is a community quarantine status? Who can work from home? Who should report on site? Or maybe, what are the essential services to be done in school? Tune in as the Department of Education through the Bureau of Human Resource and Organizational Development provides tips for school heads in operationalizing alternative work arrangement or AWA. I am Carlos Villamos III, a school principal of Iligan City, Region 10, Northern Mindanao. Education must continue, a bold statement from the Secretary of Education, Leonor Magtoles Briones, which every committed teacher agrees. Part of the directive that education must continue for our learners is also for DepEd to ensure the safety and welfare of its employee on top of its priority. Come this October 5, 2020, will be the opening of all public schools in the Philippines. But we are ready with the work arrangement of each teacher considering the highly diverse context of all DepEd schools in different places of the Philippines. Thus, we will provide tips for all school heads on how to operationalize the alternative work arrangement at the school level. But before that, don't forget to like, follow, and share this webinar on your wall so that we can reach out all DepEd personnel wherever they may be right now. In identifying the alternative work arrangement of teachers, these are the considerations that school heads must look into. First is to always observe minimum health and safety standards in whatever declared community quarantine status, may it be nationally or locally, where the school or the community learning center is located. Second of the consideration is the profiling of the personnel, under which is identifying the personnel at risks or those with health conditions. Who are they? These are the personnel who are 60 years old and above or 20 years old below. Those personnel with immunodeficiency, comorbidities, and other health risks. Those personnel who are pregnant. And those personnel who are COVID-19 suspects or with probable cases. Second, under personal profiling, is the personnel with transport and border limitations. Third, under personal profiling, is to identify personnel who are providing essential services. So what are these essential services? Essential services for the learning delivery modalities and essential services on school operations. Since we know already that there are essential services for LDMs and essential services for school operations that we need to deliver, the school now needs to know how to accomplish it. That is why it is very important for us to know the available resources that we have in school and how we can mobilize them in order for us to carry out the essential services. As mentioned by the previous speaker, the DepEd Order Number 11 Series 2020 is not meant to prescribe a specific alternative work arrangement for each modality. It is a decision that we have to make as school heads, of course in consultation with our teachers and personnel. Now allow me to walk you through the 4 easy steps in determining the most appropriate alternative work arrangement in your school. We have 4 steps. Step 1 is to identify the essential processes and deliverables with the chosen LDMs based on the BELCP principles. Step 2, profile teachers and staff. Step 3, prepare a weekly work plan based on the processes and deliverables identified in item 1. And the 4th step is to identify appropriate alternative work arrangements in your school based on steps 1, 2, and 3. Are you ready? Now let's dig into details of each. Step 1. Identify the essential services. We classify these essential services into 3 categories. Those who are related to learning deliveries. Second, those who are related to the usual school operations. And third, those who are related to crisis management and emergency response. Now, let's talk about the first category, the learning delivery modality. The learning delivery modalities such as modular distance learning, online distance learning, TV video or radio-based instruction, blended distance learning, and homeschooling are all stipulated in DM-CI-2020-00162. Also, the possible deliverables and sample processes involved are also there. I am sure that at this point, you already have identified the learning modality that you are to employ in your respective schools. The question is, how do we determine the appropriate alternative work arrangement of our school personnel and teachers? I understand that this is not an easy question, and we cannot be sure if we are right or wrong, but there is a way for us to know whether what we have done is appropriate for our teachers. Let's take modular distance learning as an example. In this specific modality, let's ask ourselves with this question: what are the deliverables that need to be done? I want you to comment your answer, just a word perhaps, in the comment box for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very good. Thank you for that cooperation. Maybe your answers would be printed worksheets, modules, and all. Yes, you are all correct. We need to ensure that all learners have printed or offline digital self-learning modules and activity sheets. How can we ensure that our learners will have printed modules or activity sheets? What are the specific processes or tasks involved? I will give you again 5 seconds to comment even a word as your answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wow, congratulations. Very good. Thank you for your cooperation. The possible answer would be reproduction or distribution of learning materials. Also, if your answer refers to other deliverables, you can answer perhaps retrieval of materials or monitoring to learners' progress and likes, as stipulated in DM-CI-2020-00162. Finally, we can answer this question: can it be done remotely? Does it require physical or on-site reporting? These questions will allow us to know the manpower requirement for each modality, the possible work arrangement which we can employ. Now let's proceed to the 2 other categories. Aside from the learning delivery modalities, let's not forget that there are still other important school processes and essential services that every school leader need to carry on. This is the second category, the services related to the continuity of our school management and operations. Among those shown on your screen are the school planning processes where the AIP preparation, adjustments, and reporting are captured, which, as leaders, it is very important for us to prepare, to adjust, and to report our AIP because it is related to the second tasks I'll be citing, the financial reporting and transaction, where disbursement, liquidation, and other related tasks are captured. We all know that financial planning and financial budgeting this time is very important because as school leaders, we are expected to respond promptly to assist our learners, teachers, and the community in times of pandemic. And speaking of COVID-19 pandemic, finally, we also have identified the third category, those services that will ensure schools' responsiveness to crises and emergencies. Before, we are doing drills on earthquake, fire, and flood. But since the most pressing challenge this time is COVID-19 pandemic, every school leader must act promptly to address this, and among those responses are school disinfection and contact tracing. As school leaders, I know that we are doing initially these tasks, but to guide us in determining the appropriate AWA for our school personnel, reflect on this question. Can we do those mentioned tasks remotely? Does it require physical or online reporting? I know that we already have answers in our mind since school leaders are innovative, resourceful, and critical thinkers. With that, we can now proceed in planning out the AWA for each school personnel. Now let's go to step 2, profiling of teachers and staff. As leaders, we have to balance the priorities. While we continue the delivery of education services, we also have to make sure that the people who will make this happen are protected. In assigning AWA per individual personnel, requires us to ask these following questions. Who among the teachers and staff are considered person at risks and have existing health conditions? These are the 60 years old and above, or those 21 years old below employees. Those employees with immunodeficiency, comorbidities, and other health risks. Also those pregnant employees and those who are COVID-19 suspects and have probable cases. We also have to consider personnel with transport and border limitation, and those who will deliver essential services as cited in items 7 and 10 of DepEd Order 11 Series 2020. Then once we identified and profiled all our employees, then we have to plot them in the quadrant for us to determine the human resource capacity of the school. We now know our human resource capacity. We can now proceed to step 3, the preparation of school weekly work plan. Based on the required tasks to be accomplished as we identify in step 1, we can now plot the weekly work plan. Here is a sample for your reference. But don't be confused. I am sure some of you already have managed to come up with your weekly work plan, which is more applicable and appropriate with your own context. That's okay. This sample is just a suggestion and not mandatory. You may continue with your own template as you see fit. You're in the best position to make this decision in your school. Finally, step 4. Identify the appropriate alternative work arrangement for our teachers and staff. This is the tricky part, but as born leaders, I know we can manage. The parameter of each of these AWA are already discussed by Director Lopez. What is important at this point is that we make sense of steps 1, 2, and 3 to be able to determine the most applicable work arrangement for our school personnel. For easier reference, we have laid down the parameters for skeleton workforce or on-site reporting and work-from-home arrangement in the tabular form. As identified here, we have determined the following: location or deployment for each type of AWA. What are the attendance and reporting mechanisms, tools in place? How do we monitor performance? How do we ensure personnel health and safety in their workplace? Technology and equipment for the personnel to effectively perform their duties while on alternative work arrangement. Let's cite deployment or location as an example. If you are on a skeleton workforce, your location may be the school or the community or SDO, or the drop-off or pick-up point of the modules. But if you are in a work from home, you will be at your residence. Before I'm going to end this very short video, let us first have a quick review of the 4-step process in determining the most appropriate alternative work arrangement for our teachers. First is we need to consider the form of community quarantine where our school or the community learning center is located. Also consider the other factors: the learning delivery modalities, the learning resources, the profile of the teachers, and the essential processes and services we do in school. And then from there, you can do the simple yes-no question in order for you to be assisted in determining the most appropriate alternative work arrangement for all school personnel. So those are the 4 simple tips that we can provide for our school leaders. One thing before I'm going to end this video is that we have to put in mind that every one of us are adjusting and every one of us are trying to accept and embrace this new normal. The best thing that we can do for the moment is we need to let our teachers, let everyone around us feel that they are understood, feel that they are considered. Because one way to battle this COVID-19 pandemic is that we fight together, we stand together, and we heal together. Kasi ang taong may handang isip ay handa sa parating na bukas. Maraming salamat po.